Part 18. A Sledgehammer Breaks into Pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 171. Lion Blood Claw. Rengar caught up with Bucky and the others, and swung his claw out from the air. Several slashes erupted from Rengar's claws. Since he learned that Orgrim was practicing the 6 styles, Rengar, with the attitude of "what my idol does, I will learn it," he also went to find the secret skills of the 6 postures and began to practice. However, he focused on practicing the skills of Lanxiao, which can produce slashing blows. But soon, Rengal was stunned. "Damn it, my chops clearly cut that clown-like red nose into several pieces. Why is he still running? Isn't this unscientific? Die, die, die." Bucky's mentality was shattered at this time. His feet kept running on the ground, his body split into several pieces, and tears burst out of his eyes. It seemed that his potential had exploded at this critical moment of life and death. He ran faster and faster, and Leongal turned into a lion and couldn't catch up with him on all 4 legs. Bucky, at this moment, Shank's feet suddenly stopped. The famous sword griffin in his hand instantly unsheathed and slashed at Rengar. Die! Rengar's claws carried domineering power, and he grabbed Shanks without hesitation. The next moment, an armed and domineering confrontation broke out between the two, and Shanks had a look on his face. With a very serious expression, he blocked Rengar's claw. "God avoids," Shanks shouted in a low voice, and the slash in his hand exploded again, knocking Rengar away with one blow. Is this actually Roger's sword skill? But it seems that this powerful sword skill is not suitable for Shanks. The burden on Shanks was not small. After killing Rengar, Shanks turned slightly pale. Not daring to delay any more, he turned around and continued running. However, he had just taken 2 steps when he was suddenly hit by a blow at his feet. A shock wave hit him, and then he was thrown away and rolled in the air. He only felt that his internal organs were shaking. He couldn't help spitting out a mouthful of blood. Shanks in the air could also see clearly. What's going on? It's not that someone is attacking him, but that Orgrim, who is chasing Captain Roger, misses the target. An innocent disaster, Shanks cursed secretly. He adjusted his body in the air and quickly landed smoothly. He didn't dare to go to Orgrim to argue, and ran away faster. On the other side, Orgrim didn't know that he had just an AoE almost killed Shanks. At this time, he was chasing Roger. "You can run better than you did in the capital of 7 waters, Roger," Orgrim yelled. "Ah ha 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 ha, should I say thank you to that bastard Garp?" Roger laughed without looking back. At the same time, he continued to avoid the shock waves from Orgrim. "Ha ha ha ha, die, 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 let me die." The Sphinx was standing on the Golden Bell, holding a Gatling gun in his hand, firing continuously at the fleeing members of the Roger Pirates. That cute ponytail was blowing in the air. Swaying, a bloodthirsty, ferocious, and crazy smile hung on the originally delicate little face. Countless bullet casings fell from the Gatling gun, tilting out like rain. The Sphinx missed. How much? But it exploded the ancient ruins with sparks flying everywhere. Just as the Sphinx was madly outputting its firepower, a hand axe flew in the air, and the target was the Sphinx. The little loli glanced out of the corner of her eye, and in her hand the Gatling gun suddenly tugged, and powerful firepower shot out into the air. It directly knocked Jabba's flying hand axe out of the air. "Ha ha 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 ha, I'll shoot you in the head," Sphinx laughed wildly. The Gatling gun in her hand kept spraying bullets, turning into a fire dragon and chasing Jabba. Jabba was also on the verge of crying at this time. "No, Shiki's men, what kind of lunatics are they all? Drink." Muscle explosion, King Kong power, Neiman roared angrily and punched Rayleigh, who was fighting Shiji. Rayleigh was shocked. The sword in his hand deflected Shiji's slash, and then he nimbly dodged Neiman's punch. The next second, Neiman's heavy fist hit the golden stone next to Rayleigh. The huge golden stone dented directly, and then a hole was directly opened in the back by the powerful punch. Gold dust flying. What kind of power is this? Lei thought helplessly. But before Ni Man could turn around and punch Lei again, another figure suddenly rushed out and kicked Ni Man in the stomach. Iron is indestructible. Neiman shouted in a low voice. Then, a huge force came from her abdomen. Although with the strength of muscles and iron, Neiman did not feel too serious injuries. But her figure was affected by this. His feet were kicked out. At the same time, the sword in the hand of the figure who attacked Neiman also slashed towards Shiji. Rayleigh, run away and don't get into trouble with them, Kojiki Odin said quickly. Before he finished speaking, Rayleigh's eyes changed and he exclaimed, "Get away! How dare you, a bastard, hit my sister? I'm not even willing to hit her." Orgrim's figure rushed here at some point, and grabbed the warhammer in his hand again, and hammered it down towards Kojiki Odin. As soon as Kojiki Odin turned around, he saw Orgrim's the figure jump down from a gold brick, and the warhammer almost hit his face. Flowing Sakura, Kojiki Odin did not hesitate to activate the highest power of his haki, covering his arms and crossing them in front of his head. Then, a huge force was released from his arms, and then the powerful shockwave directly blew him away. After rolling on the ground a few times and knocking the headless golden statue away, Kojiki Odin stabilized his body and his arms were slightly numb. Before he could react, a giant purple dragon swallowed him in one gulp. Fortunately, at this time, he still maintained Liu Ying's domineering power, covering his whole body. The invisible power of domineering blocked the poison from attacking him. Erosion. What are these? Kojiki Odin exclaimed. He felt that his extremely powerful domineering energy was being eroded by the poison, and it seemed that he could no longer hold on. Odin Nitoryu Daowen Waterfall. Kojiki Odin suddenly pulled out another famous sword, Tianyu Yuzhan, and the powerful slash flew out with it. It directly opened a hole in Poison Dragon's belly, and his figure also flew out. There was no place to stay before a warhammer roared from the left and hit Kojiki Odin's waist directly, sending his whole body flying. Cough, Kojiki Odin couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. After landing, he didn't even want to look back and ran away. On the other side, the Sphinx was also rushed to his side by Jabba, and he slashed the Sphinx's arm with an axe. The Sphinx's armed haki wrapped around a Gatling gun, and the barrel directly blocked the axe blade, but Jabba's powerful power still knocked her away, and the Gatling with unlimited firepower was also knocked down and dropped to the side. While falling from the golden bell, the Sphinx pulled out the hand cannons hanging on the sides of his waist. "I'll blow your head off with 2 shots, the Sphinx cursed. As he finished speaking, 2 cannonballs were fired out. Jabba's armed look was domineering, and he withstood the 2 cannonballs and hit him directly. Just when he was about to kill the Sphinx with an axe. At that moment, Neiman suddenly exerted her force in the distance, and a square gold brick as big as the text of history was directly hit by her. Jabba cursed secretly, and the text of history under the golden bell was directly thrown at her. He stepped forward and quickly changed his body shape to avoid the gold brick. Then he raised his eyes and looked at the battle situation. Shiji was chasing Roger Eli and Kojiki Odin, and they had already run very far away. Shanks and Tomoji and the others were nowhere to be seen. So Jabba stopped fighting, turned around and ran away without saying a word. The Sphinx, who got up from the ground, pulled out the revolver from his waist and pointed it at Jabba, like a Western cowboy, forced the will to speed up the fire with one hand, and aimed at Jabba with the other hand and started grabbing. "Death burst," the Sphinx yelled. In just a moment, her hand was like a flower shadow. She turned the revolver's magazine countless times, and 6 bullets burst out in an instant. Jabba's figure was like a monkey. Agile, there is no need to look back at all, he has already noticed everything when he sees and hears haki. "Move, move, snakeskin move," and instantly dodged the Sphinx's bullet. Damn it, the Sphinx cursed, looked around, ran to the edge of the ruins in a few steps, and pulled his Gatling up. When he wanted to aim at Jabba again, this guy had already dodged several times and rolled over. I got 2 gold bricks and disappeared. Ah, I'm so angry, the Sphinx yelled like crazy. Then the Gatling roared again, scattering aimlessly and destroying countless golden ruins. This chase started from the land of gold, Sandor. The center of the pull reached the edge of the island. Roger and others hurriedly sailed away. Shiji looked at the guy's figure and couldn't help laughing. Gee ha 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 ha, I finally vented all Adwal's anger, Shiki laughed and spoke. He could have gone after it now, but he didn't. Because Shiji also reacted at this time, although it looked like they were chasing the Roger pirates. But in fact, in terms of combat effectiveness, they are no match for the Roger pirates. They did not bring their own large fleet. If the chase continues, the fish will die and the net will be broken, and neither side will be able to benefit. At this time, Adwal's anger was vented, that's all. Shiji already felt very good. No more chasing? Orgrim asked with his warhammer on his shoulder. Stop chasing. If you continue to chase, it won't be such a simple matter. Let those bastards run away, Shiki smiled and shook his head. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 172. At the port of Angel Island, Roger and others rushed here from the land of gold in a hurry. Ha 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 ha, Roger laughed. When he smiled, the others also laughed. How exciting, Jabba said with a smile. That guy Shiji suddenly ran out, which shocked me. Riley also smiled and shook his head. Fortunately, that bastard didn't come prepared. If he had brought his own fleet today, we would be doomed. Roger said with a smile. Yes, I really don't know whether to call it lucky or unlucky. Jabba smacked his lips and said. Bucky looked at these big guys in confusion, and then collapsed and said, why can you still laugh? We didn't get the gold, Captain Roger. Ha 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 ha, Bucky, what else do you want about gold? It would be nice to run away. Shanks covered his chest and laughed. It was rare that Bucky didn't argue with Shanks this time. Because he also knew that in the battle just now, Shanks was almost beaten to death in order to cover his escape. Seriously injured. His expression was a little tangled, but Bucky still asked, are you okay? Shanks was stunned for a moment, then shook his head and said, it's nothing. It's just that the shockwave affected me a little bit, so I feel a little uncomfortable. Roger smiled and looked at Shanks and asked, how is it? Have you really seen the power of that bastard Orgrim today? Shanks nodded with lingering fear, and then said, it is indeed very powerful, it is simply a monster. Just the aftermath of his casual attack almost got him into trouble, although it was also because he was unprepared. But Shanks was quite confident in his own strength, and now he was hit by Orgrim. Speaking of which, Shanks can be regarded as a person who has accumulated a lot of experience. The struggle for kingship in the New World got out of hand after Roger's death and the beginning of the Great Pirate Era. But in fact, it took a very long time for the top Yonko pirates to take shape, which was no worse than the speed at which the Shishibukai gathered together. Needless to say, Newgate was undoubtedly the most powerful pirate on the sea when Roger was executed and Shiki stayed away. After that, Kaido and Charlotte Lingling began to use their strength to climb to the top. But at that time, there was still a melee among the various pirates. There is no so-called Four Emperors situation at all. It wasn't until 6 years before the plot began that Shanks suddenly rose up and became the top pirate in one fell swoop. Due to his appearance, the chaotic situation in the New World was finally stabilized. The true Yonko pirates were formed to share the New World. The New World has also become a model where you have to either join the Shishibukai or the Yonko pirates. Ordinary pirate forces cannot survive in the New World for too long. This situation lasted until the emergence of the extremely evil generation, which once again broke the pirate order in the New World. Ha ha ha, what's so great about that guy is not his strength, but his potential and talent. More than a year ago, when we met in the capital of Seven Waters, that guy was chased and beaten by the Vice Admiral of the Navy. Now, do you see how fast he is progressing? Roger said with a smile. Shanks asked curiously, Captain, if you calculate it this way, if you give him more than a year, will he be able to become like you, Shiji, and Nyugai? Extremely powerful? Roger was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, how is that possible? Rayleigh also said with a smile, Shanks, the growth rate of each stage of strength is different. Orgrim's rapid growth to the current level is beyond our expectations, but it makes sense, but how can it be so simple to become the world's top master? He is not the only one with extraordinary talents in this sea. Think about it, Kaido, Charlotte, Lingling, who has worse talent than him? And how many years did it take them to reach the top position? That guy wants to be like Sky and Newgate, there is still a long way to go, Jabba also said softly. It depends on his ability. If he is quick, it will take him 3 to 5 years. If he is slow, it will take him 3 to 5 years, 8 or 9 years is also normal, Roger nodded and said. Captain Roger, how old is that guy? Bucky asked curiously. He seems to be only 19, right? Roger touched his chin and said. If you are 19 years old, judging from the span of 10 years, can he become the strongest group of people in the world before he is 30 years old? Bucky murmured in surprise. After hearing these words, everyone's expressions were a little strange and complicated. Yes, no matter how you calculate it, with Orgrim's strength and potential, 10 years will be enough for him to win the championship. The strongest group of people in the world. But by that time, he will be less than 30 years old, which is the golden stage of life, and a good period for stabilizing strength and growing up. By then, how long will it take for him to what time does it take to become the strongest in the true sense? The future is limitless, Riley shook his head with emotion and said. As soon as Laylee finished speaking, everyone had an inexplicable thought in their hearts. Perhaps, maybe this Kazguro's Orgrim can really become the strongest in the world in the future? Ha 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 ha, I can't see it, but you can see it? I really don't know whether you are lucky or unlucky, Bucky and Shanks. Roger laughed and said. After hearing this, Rayleigh, Jabba and the others changed their expressions and said, can we see it too? It's like we'll die early. Ha 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 ha, Roger laughed. Shanks felt a little uncomfortable after listening to Roger's words. Yes, Vice Captain Rayleigh or Senior Jabba were both veteran pirates. They have nothing to compare to Orgrim. But if he and Bucky were to be considered pirates of the same era as Orgrim, they were born at the same time. They are all members of the new generation. And to grow up in the same era as Orgrim, I really don't know if it's unfortunate or lucky. Fortunately, we can see him step by step towards the top of the world and witness the birth of a legend. Unfortunately, perhaps countless people will be lost in his halo and become supporting characters. Thinking of this, Shanks' heart ignited a blazing fire, and then he said in a deep voice, Shanks, will not lose to him. Oh. Very confident Roger looked at Shanks with a smile and said. Ha 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 ha, do your best, Shanks, in our opinion, you are no worse than Orgrim at all, it's just that you don't work as hard as him, you're a little lazy. Rayleigh rubbed the straw hat on Shanks' head and said with a smile. I entrusted my hat to you, Shanks. Don't lose to that bastard Orgrim so easily, Roger also followed with encouragement. And me? And me? Bucky pointed at himself and shouted. Everyone looked at Bucky, laughed and asked, do you have confidence in yourself? If so, we encourage you to. Bucky put his hands on his waist, and then said confidently, Uncle Bucky wants to find the treasures in the world. Okay, don't waste time, Hurry up and buy the octopus balloon. Let's return to the sea. Where is the last historical text of the road sign? Roger waved his hand and ordered. Kojiki Odin smacked his lips and said, maybe we can find some more historical texts. What information can we get? It is unlikely that the historical text of the road sign must have been moved after it was cast. Roger shook his head and said. Just when Roger and the others were preparing to leave the sea area of Kandao and return below. In Sandolala, the land of gold, Orgrim also grabbed the two ponytails of the Sphinx and was teaching this runaway little loli. You little girl, all of us have caused less damage here than you alone. Look at what you have done here. Orgrim stood behind the Sphinx, holding the little loli's ponytail and torturing her. Let go of my ponytail, Orgrim, you bastard, I'll shoot you in the head, the Sphinx cursed while struggling. However, because the ponytail was controlling the steering wheel, her struggle seemed very weak. Apologize to me quickly, just say I'm sorry, Lord Orgrim, I won't dare to do it again. Orgrim grabbed the Sphinx's ponytail and shook it. Why apologize? Isn't it just shooting randomly? Anyway, this is all our gold, just take away the pieces. There is no real loss, the Sphinx defended while shaking its head from side to side, trying to break free from Orgrim's shackles. You bastard girl who knows nothing, these are not just pure gold, they are also very valuable antiques. Now you have smashed them all, let's not forget that we have lost tens of billions of Baileys. Orgrim cursed angrily. How many billions of belly? The Sphinx stopped and asked in disbelief. Almost 400 years ago, Sandora Golden City disappeared on the sea. This itself has a high historical value, and it also has the well-known story of the great liar Wenbrand Rolando. The background and collection value are also very high, do you understand? Orgrim lectured. At this moment, Beckman came over with a smile, rubbed the Sphinx's head, and said okay, she didn't mean it, she doesn't understand. That's all, and don't you feel ashamed? What am I ashamed of? Orgrim asked a little strangely. You really don't want to think about your identity? What qualifications do you have to say Sphinx? You are the public enemy of mankind recognized by O'Hara's historian and cultural circles, the culprit who destroyed the cradle of human civilization. The Sphinx only destroyed something that lasted 400 years, but you destroyed the oldest human beings in Alabasta. The royal capital of the country, thousands of years of history have been wasted, Beckman complained helplessly. The Sphinx was stunned for a moment, and then while Orgrim was in a daze, he broke free from the restraints and said confidently, compared to you, I'm far behind. Humph, the public enemy of mankind. Big guys, shower me with flowers, come on, don't stop, I'm thick-skinned. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 173. If Shiji hadn't been there, Orgrim would have moved the entire golden land of Sandora, which would have been a huge project. After all, the entire city has to be loaded out, so one can imagine how huge the amount of work involved is. But if Shiji is here, that won't be a problem. At this time Orgrim was standing next to Shiji, smiled, and asked, how is it? I didn't lie to you, right? The gold of an entire city is enough for you to squander for many years. Gee ha 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 ha, although I don't really understand the value of antique treasures and the like, but just looking at gold, there are hundreds of billions of gold here. It is indeed enough for me to squander it for a long time. Maybe that plan can also be accelerated. Shiji said with a big smile. Now, as long as we take it away, this kind of thing is easy for you, Orgrim said with a smile. Shiji nodded, lightly poked his foot on the ground, and then an inexplicable energy wave spread out. The entire piece of land that was washed into the sky by the soaring sea currents of Gaia Island, they were all eroded by this energy. Then Shiji said, okay, We can leave at any time. Is there anything else you want to explore on this empty island? Are there any other treasures? Orgrim was stunned for a moment, then waved his hand and said, we are lucky to be able to find the land of gold and the thunder fruit. Where can there be so many treasures? That's right, then let's leave. Shiji nodded and said. As a user with the Piao Piao fruit ability, Shiji is not very interested in Sky Island or anything like that. After all, he can come here casually. As for Orgrim, he has now obtained the thunder fruit, and the golden land is also. Even though he had obtained it, he was also not very interested in the other empty islands and had no intention of exploring them. Soon, the group of them was ready to leave here and directly move the hometown of the Sandians. Maybe it would be gone. In this land, the century-old war between Angel Island and the Sandians will soon end, right? Thinking about it this way, I, Orgrim, am really a good person. I do good deeds every day. Thinking about it, Orgrim, I also thought about the Straw Hat Pirates in the future. I wonder what their mentality would be like after they spent all their efforts to climb to the empty island, and finally found that the Golden Land had been moved away together with their roots. It's interesting to think about it. But Orgrim would not hesitate because of this, and he had no intention of leaving any gifts for the Straw Hat Pirates. After all, they were not familiar with them either. Unlike the Roger Pirates, they needed to return to the sea first before continuing to enter New World. Shiji and the others took the Land of Gold directly back to the New World from the air. There was no need to go down at all. Less than half a month later, Orgrim and others also returned to Shiji's old nest, Melview Island. Go up. This time, Nightingale, Plank, and Vincent did not go to Sky Island. Nightingale is now participating in Shiji's big plan of man-made ancient weapons with Dr. Indigo. Went there. He was also very interested in that project, and also very fascinated by IQ, a drug that can promote biological evolution. With his medical knowledge, and then combined with Dr. Indigo's imagination and scientific technology, the development progress is also very rapid. Even Nightingale feels that this IQ potion can not only be used to strengthen those beasts. If the technology matures in the future, it will also be very good to conduct human enhancement experiments there, and it may be able to strengthen. How about producing a group of mature warriors who are as good as the Kingdom of Germa? But this is just an idea for now. The most urgent task is to accelerate the maturity of this technology. In a short time, the future cannot be seen. Orgrim got off the boat, so I went to find Vincent with a stack of blueprints. Speaking of which, Vincent has also been learning Shiji's shipbuilding technology recently. Shiji's ship can fly in the sky, and 90% of it is 9 factors are all because of the Piao Piao fruit. But the remaining 1% is indeed a breakthrough in shipbuilding technology. A ship that can fly in the air and a ship that sails on the sea, no matter the structure or materials, there is a big gap. That's what he was studying. When Orgrim found him, Vincent was studying the technology of Skena's aerial rowing of oars. Captain, Vincent glanced at Orgrim strangely. He didn't know why he came to see him. Vincent, long time no see. Orgrim said hello with a smile. Yes, who told you to always retreat? Ha 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 ha, what's wrong? Is there something wrong with Boss Shiji's ship? Do you need me to fix it? Vincent asked with a smile. Orgrim smiled awkwardly. He did make a big hole in Shiji's ship, but it has been repaired. No, I found a new technology on Sky Island, which is related to shipbuilding. You see, Orgrim waved his hand, and then handed all the drawings in his hand to Vincent. As a professional, Vincent was immersed in it after taking one look at the drawings. After rummaging for a long time, he raised his head still unfinished, looked at Orgrim with some excitement and said, Captain, this is a good thing. I didn't expect that there is such a technology on the Sky Island, the airship. Ha 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 ha, Different cultures should bring deviations in technology, that's normal. Orgrim laughed. Sky Island has this basic cultural heritage. They live high in the sky, and it is reasonable for them to want to build a spaceship. If you tell people that you want to build a spaceship on the sea, people may think you are crazy. What? Is the ocean not wide enough, or are you too rough? You haven't even conquered this ocean yet, and you just want to go to the moon? Can you please stop taking such big steps, and don't stretch your balls? Okay. How about it? Can these be installed on our deep-sea overlord, the Black Narwhal? Become a flying ship? Orgrim raised his eyebrows and asked very curiously. Vincent held the blueprint and pondered for a while, and then said theoretically, as long as there are enough breathing shells, then it is possible. Ha 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 ha, I also took this into consideration and collected a lot of wind-breathing shells on the empty island. Orgrim laughed. Well, we don't know whether this power source is stable or unstable, and many things require practical operation. Let me give it a try. Vincent said with a smile. Okay, I'll leave this to you. Orgrim reached out and patted Vincent on the shoulder and said. Then he didn't mean to disturb Vincent anymore and was about to leave. After turning around and taking a few steps, Vincent seemed to have thought of something. He smiled and said, by the way, Captain. What? Orgrim turned around and asked. During the time you went to Condeo, you probably didn't receive any recent inquiries from the sea. If you are interested, you can read the newspapers from a while ago, but there is some explosive news. I think it may be able to rewrite the entire story. What about the pattern of the sea, especially us pirates? Vincent reminded with a smile. Yeah? A look of curiosity flashed in Orgrim's eyes, and then he said, I understand, then I have to go and have a look. Farewell. Back in the courtyard, Orgrim quickly ordered his servants to get the nearest newspaper. Sitting on the sun lounger in the courtyard, Orgrim quickly began to read these newspapers. Ah, the World Conference? Has this time arrived without you realizing it? It's over. I really didn't notice it. Orgrim smacked his lips first. When he opened the last newspaper, he was stunned for a moment. Because the headline on the newspaper was the King's Shishibukai plan. This is really, Orgrim murmured in shock. At this moment, Beckman also ran in hurriedly with a newspaper in his hand. As soon as he saw Orgrim, he said, sure enough, are you reading the newspaper too? This is really big news. Ah, the King's Shishibukai plan, is the world government crazy? Recruit 7 great pirates around the world to become legitimate existences under the world government. They will be pardoned for all past crimes and have the qualifications to legally plunder, assisting the world government in controlling the new world, Orgrim whispered softly. Then he smiled, looked at Beckman and said, it seems that the incompetence of the Navy has angered the world government, so this plan was implemented. This should be true. After all, except for the 3 naval bases near the Red Earth continent, the Navy has basically lost control of the new world. This is where we pirates have the final say, so the world government wants to get the pirates. The strength is also normal. Beckman nodded and said. How about it? Are you interested in the location of King Shishibukai? Beckman raised his eyebrows and asked Orgrim. Orgrim was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, not interested at all, at least for now. Just kidding, he is enjoying everything he wants under Shiji, and he is just like a second uncle. What kind of king is Shishibukai? Yeah? I thought you would be interested. After all, you don't have any moral integrity. You are willing to do anything that is beneficial. And it is obvious that the King's Shishibukai has extraordinary benefits. Beckman could see the advantages of the King's Shishibukai at a glance. With the endorsement of the world government, if you become the king of the Shishibukai, you don't have to worry about the threat of the Navy for the time being, and you can also exchange supplies with the world government, which will have extremely powerful advantages in both economic and other aspects. During the period of becoming the king's Shishibukai, just seize the time to deal with your peers. If you think about it carefully, it's really nice. Didn't the newspapers in the next few days say so? If I become King Shishibukai, I will be a lackey for the world government. I don't want to be a lackey. Orgrim waved his hand and said. Beckman nodded first. Indeed, as soon as the name of the King Shishibukai came out, it seemed very special, awkward. But soon, he shook his head and said, don't be so superficial. I think there must be a conspiracy here. Anyway, let's take a look first and then evaluate. Let's see what's going on with the King's Kibukai, and let's see, who will be the first to eat crabs. Well, let's wait and see. Orgrim said with a smile. Anyway, before taking over Shiji, these things had little to do with Orgrim. After taking over Shiji, whether he wants to become a king of the Shishibukai depends on the actual situation. If the benefits are big enough to make Orgrim's heart move, he won't mind. Of course, this is just an idea. It's still a question whether the world government wants him as the enemy of mankind. After all, Orgrim's name is too evil. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 174. Shiji took care of the Roger pirates on the Sky Island, although no news was spread, causing the sea to shake or something. But he has been in a really good mood recently, and because of this, Shiji has no desire to cause trouble. I've been sitting in Melview all day long, wondering what I've been doing. Due to Shiji's silence, the entire Flying Pirates group became quiet. Except for the independent captain of his Golden Lion fleet who was out doing things, the rest were doing their own thing step by step. Orgrim is also quietly polishing his own strength. I have to say that Orgrim is indeed a homebody, and he doesn't want to go out and wander around when he has nothing to do. In Orgrim's courtyard, Orgrim was sitting cross-legged under the shade of a tree, his eyes slightly closed, and his domineering energy was constantly surging and spreading. He was in the courtyard, but half of Melview was covered by his domineering aura. It is obvious that he is practicing his shortcomings and is domineering. Not far away on the other side of the courtyard, the boy Enilu was doing push-ups non-stop. His originally thin body had become a little stronger because of eating and drinking well recently. Not long after, the little Lolita Sphinx came in swinging her twin ponytails. She first glanced at Orgrim who was sitting in the shade of a tree, and found that the guy was practicing knowledge, sex, and domineering. She curled her lips in boredom and said to herself, it's really boring. Don't you know how to enjoy it at all? Then she opened her eyes. He looked at Enilu with a bright look, walked over with a smile and asked Enilu, what are you doing so hard for? Aren't you bored? Why don't you come with me to play? Let's go hunt apples. As soon as I heard the three words beat the apple, my face turned pale. Every time I hit the apple, I am the one holding the apple, okay. No, I have to train hard and keep getting stronger, Enilu shook his head and said without hesitation. Why are you working so hard? The Sphinx asked with some confusion. While doing push-ups, Enel said Lord Orgrim said that if I don't work hard, he will give me the thunder fruit. The Sphinx was shocked. What logic is this? If you don't work hard to become stronger, will you eat the thunder fruit? Is there such a good thing? But when he thought of the smell of the thunder fruit, the Sphinx seemed to understand again. But for those of them who know the roots of thunder fruit, no one is willing to eat it, okay. It can even be said that this so-called invincible natural devil fruit is simply stinking shit in the eyes of people like them. As one of the parties involved, Enilu certainly knows what the thunder fruit is like. He now enjoys popular food and drinks spicy food, and has experienced a good life. Of course, he is not willing to eat shit. And Orgrim has great expectations for him, hoping that he can become his general in the future. So I threatened him with the thunder fruit. If he dared to relax and didn't become stronger, then eat the disgusting thunder fruit to make up for his shortcomings. Enelu didn't want to eat that stinky shit like thunderfruit, so he decided that he would become a master of physical arts. In terms of strength, don't let Lord Orgrim down, so you must practice hard. After the Sphinx figured out the principle behind it, he couldn't help but smile and shake his head. I feel a little emotional in my heart. I have to say that these people are still living a good life. They have Shiji, a big boss, protecting them, and now they have Orgrim, a potential new star, who can carry the future. Therefore, even if it is the thunderfruit, I dare to despise it. Apart from anything else, if placed in the fiercely competitive sea below, let alone the thunderfruit, it would look like a piece of stinky shit. Even if it is really a piece of stinky shit, as long as it can improve its strength, as long as it can get that so-called tidal invincible power. People who are willing to eat this shit grab a lot of it, and they even rush to eat it. But then again, only excellent people can live such a good life. Shiki and Orgrim still look down on those rubbish. This is the calmness of the strong, right? The Sphinx thought horribly. You people are so boring. Neiman was also sent out by Boss Shiji to carry out some orders. Brother Beckman spends all day in the library and no one plays with me anymore, the Sphinx smacked her lips dissatisfiedly. Ha 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 ha, Orgrim opened his eyes at this time, looked at the Sphinx and laughed. You can go find Dai Pen. I don't want to play with Dai Pen, she doesn't get along with me at all, the Sphinx said angrily. You little girl, don't waste your talents, okay? Practice your physical skills well. No matter what devil fruit you eat in the future, you will gain benefits. If it doesn't work, why not eat the thunder fruit? Orgrim said with a smile. Hey, you don't understand. If I ask Enel to play the apple game, that's also practicing cultivation, right? I, the Sphinx, am also working very hard to improve my shooting level, the Sphinx said with a disdainful expression. Orgrim was stunned for a moment. Ouch. Don't tell me, this theory seems to be true. Just when he was chatting with the Sphinx, this guy hurriedly walked in. Speaking of which, Planck has now completely turned to the identity of an intelligence member. As for Hank, although he realizes that his qualifications are limited, there is no good way out. Anyway, just follow Mr. Hammer, and he is constantly training himself. At least now he is very good at training in armed color and domineering. If I get some animal devil fruit for him in the future, he can be a hammer-bearing general and give it to Orgrim. There is no problem at all in supporting the team. In recent times, Gangplank has basically joined the intelligence agency under Shiji, and he has also found a good position in it. Orgrim is also very happy about this. Satisfied. If Shiji really overturns in Marineford in the future, he can also use Plank's power to quickly take control of Shiji's intelligence agency. It's very good. What's wrong? Orgrim looked at Gangplank and asked. Gangplank hurriedly walked to Orgrim's side and said, Master Hammer, 2 important pieces of information you ordered have appeared. Orgrim's face straightened and he asked, what information? The world government and the Catholic Church will have a meeting in the near future, trade. Gangplank said softly. Orgrim was stunned for a moment, and then quickly realized. What else could this deal between the world government and the Catholic Church be? Isn't it just an orphan? But ordinary Orgrim, I have no interest in the news at all, but since Planck mentioned it, it means. Found that Rob Lucci? Orgrim asked softly. That's right. Gangplank nodded, then took out a photo from his arms and handed it to Orgrim. Orgrim took it and took a look. On it was a skinny young lady wearing rags. He looks like the kind of person who lives a miserable life. And looking at his face, he is indeed very familiar, very similar to Rob Lucci. This little guy's name is Rob Lucci. I wonder if he is the person you are looking for, Mr. Hammer? Gangplank asked. A smile appeared on Orgrim's lips and he said, gee ha 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 ha, he is right. After laughing, Orgrim asked again, where is the transaction conducted? Avalon Island in the New World, Plank said quickly. Avalon? Orgrim murmured in surprise. Gangplank explained, Avalon is the island of eternal night, and it is also known as the most chaotic island in the world. Both the church and the world government pay more attention to their reputations, and the trafficking of plant orphans really shouldn't be brought to light. Basically, every time they trade, they will be on Avalon Island, because there is so much chaos and darkness, there are no clues to be found. Moreover, even if there is any problem, the church or the world government can push the blame to the evil parties. Orgrim nodded, understanding. Then he asked again, what is the other information? It's also related to Avalon, Glank first explained like this. Then he quickly said, this year, people in the dark world will hold an auction in Avalon. There is a technology in it. Lord Hammer, you asked me to keep an eye on it. Of devil fruit materialized transmission, Orgrim's eyes lit up and he asked softly. He had long wanted to strengthen his hammer, but he never had the skills. On the black market in the dark world, there are people who specialize in making this kind of hammer. As a business person, he was really worried about Orgrim handing over the hammer to them for arrangement. What if those bastards ran away with my hammer? Therefore, he had explained it a long time ago. Plank, pay attention to the transactions in the dark world to see if anyone is selling this technology. If so, buy it and leave it to Dr. Indigo to study it. He will feel more at ease now. It seems that this kind of technology has appeared on the black market in Avalon. Yes, devil fruit material transmission technology is said to be the only one that has been circulated in recent years, and it is very popular. Glank nodded and said. Orgrim also understood that technology is the core, and major forces would not sell their core technologies. If this thing can be spread, there must be some stories behind it, but Orgrim is not interested in these, he just wants to get the technology. It seems that whether it is Rob Lucci or this technology, I have to go to Avalon myself, Orgrim said with an evil smile on his lips. Orgrim is also very interested in Avalon, the island of eternal night, so he would take this opportunity to visit it. Anyway, I am idle now. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 175. Avalon Island is located in the center of the New World Sea, where it is a real no-no zone. The world government doesn't care there, nor do the pirates, and there is no national power on that island. The sea area behind the island is close to Kaido's territory. On the left is Charlotte Lingling's Totland and Nations area, on the right is Whitebeard, and in front is Shiji's territory. It can be said that several big pirate forces have surrounded Avalon Island and its surrounding waters. And these big pirates also invariably regard this place as a buffer zone between them. Therefore, they did not interfere with anything in Avalon, making Avalon a completely ignored island. It is precisely because of Avalon's disorder that all forces do not intervene and there is no one to manage it. Let this place spontaneously become the paradise of the dark world and the paradise of evil parties. Pirates, evil parties in the dark world, wanted criminals, laws of war, bounty hunters, all kinds of forces are intertwined here. Let this island and the sea area become one of the sources of chaos in the world. Avalon Island is also known as the most chaotic island in the world. When Orgrim's deep sea overlord, the Black Narwhal, sailed into the sea area, it was suddenly found that the sky was shrouded in darkness. In the edge area, you can still see the sun in the distance, but the deeper you go into the sea, the darker it gets, and you finally enter the realm of night. This is the Sea of Eternal Night. Avalon is also the island of eternal night. According to legend, King Arthur, who once established Utopia, rested here. After his death, God's favor left here, so this place will always fall into darkness. But this is just a myth and legend. Orgrim doesn't know the specific situation. Anyway, it is very similar to the island that never sleeps, Judiciary Island. In that sea area, there is never night on Judiciary Island. Under the day, it symbolizes justice. And this sea area happens to have everything except justice. Orgrim was sitting on the deck, leaning against the mast, looking at the stars in the sky with a smile on his lips. When an auction is held in the dark world, as long as it is of high quality, everyone must be invited. As a big boss in the pirate field, Shiji naturally received the invitation. However, Shiji had no interest in this auction at all. He didn't plan to attend either. He was about to throw away the invitation, but Orgrim said he was going. Shiji didn't speculate at all about Orgrim's thoughts. If he wanted to go and have a look, he could just go. In addition, Shiji had made a huge fortune recently. He had an entire city's gold in his hands, and he was also very wealthy. He casually gave Orgrim 10 billion belly and asked him to go to the auction so as not to disgrace his golden lion. With the money from the sponsor, Orgrim would certainly not refuse, so he proudly came to participate in this auction with 10 billion belly. He has two purposes. The first is to snatch Rob Lucci away from the world government and take him back to train him. The second one is to buy the devil fruit material transmission technology and give it to Dr. Indigo so that after he learns it, he can strengthen his sledgehammer. As for the devil fruit to be used for this enhancement, Orgrim hasn't thought about it yet, but it will take some time for that guy to learn the technique. It doesn't hurt to look for them at that time, and Shiki seems to have a few good devil fruits in his hands. If it doesn't work out, why not shamelessly ask him for one? I am your heir. After you die, everything will belong to me. Now I have advanced a devil fruit in advance. What's wrong? It's reasonable. There is really no sun here. I thought it was a lie. The Sphinx came over from the other side of the deck and said. This time, the only one who came with Orgrim was the Sphinx. Of course, there was also Hank, the general who carried the hammer. As for Baker Man, he seems to be studying a piece of knowledge that is very important to his strength, so he spends all day in the library and has no interest in participating in this auction with Orgrim. As for Mihawk, I don't know what people are getting into. We almost lost contact with him, but he would occasionally be contacted by phone calls, and we could see him in newspapers from time to time. Anyway, Orgrim hadn't seen him for a long time, so of course he couldn't bring him to participate in any auction. Yes. Neiman was sent on some mission by Shisky not long ago, and she is not in Melview. As for Katerina Depen, the Sphinx doesn't want to hang out with her, and Orgrim also thinks that she was too ugly, so I didn't take her with me. In fact, Depen didn't want to come either. Rengar seems to have completely regarded Orgrim as his big brother recently, and he doesn't have the arrogance to challenge him in the past. He is such a lion and insists on he became Orgrim's licking dog. Therefore, Orgrim secretly called him Poodle Rengar. He really wanted to follow Orgrim, but Orgrim made arrangements for him. He gave him a task to train Enel, asking him to teach Enel well while he was away. Therefore, in the end, only Sphinx, a little lowly with nothing to do, followed Orgrim to the Eternal Night. Island Avalon. Have you never been to the sea area before? Orgrim asked a little strangely. Sphinx was also born in the New World, and has been with Shiji for 5 or 6 years. Unexpectedly, he has never been to the Sea of Avalon. Sphinx shook his head, and then said Boss Shiji said that the sea area is very special, and all major forces consciously do not involve it. Therefore, we Cotters who represent the name of the Golden Lion have nothing to do. It is best not to do anything. Come here to avoid any misunderstandings. After a short pause, Sphinx continued, so, I have never been here before. I have to say that even though Sphinx seems to have a good relationship with Orgrim and others, in her heart, Sphinx still only regards Shiji as her boss. She doesn't know what Shiji has taught her. What kind of ecstasy soup is this? Sphinx has always carried out Shiji's orders meticulously. This time, it was because Shiji approved it that she came here with Orgrim. Otherwise, she probably wouldn't have done it. Coming. Gee ha 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 ha, what a coincidence, I have never been here either. Orgrim smiled and said. Boss Shiji gave you 10 billion Baileys. If there is anything I like at the auction here, you can't take 10 billion for yourself, the Sphinx put her hands on her waist and said confidently. Orgrim was naturally not so stingy, but seeing her I'm awesome attitude, I couldn't help but want to tease her. Just kidding, this 10 billion was given to me by Boss Shiji. Even if I can't spend it all, it's still my pocket money. I won't buy anything for you. Orgrim waved his hand and said in a pretentious manner. Orgrim, why are you so stingy? Said the Sphinx angrily. Gee ha 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 ha, what can you do to me? Orgrim laughed. I'll shoot you in the head. The Sphinx took off the revolver from his waist and pointed it at Orgrim and said. If you shoot me, I'll smash your ass, Orgrim said cursingly. The little girl Sphinx is good at everything, but she is too crazy. Except for not daring to draw a gun on Shiji, she dares to attack anyone else. Sphinx listened to Orgrim. Grim said angrily, I don't care. That was given to the two of us by Boss Shiji, and I have come all the way to accompany you here. There is hard work without credit, right? Think about it, how lonely would you be if I wasn't here? What do you think my 2,000 subordinates are? Orgrim rolled his eyes and said. Seeing that the Sphinx was about to explode with anger, Orgrim grinned and said, stretch your twin ponytails over here. If I play with it for a while, it will change my mood. All right, it's not that it's non-negotiable. The Sphinx hesitated for a while, and finally said aggrievedly, it's agreed, you can't go back on it. In this way, while teasing the little girl Sphinx, Orgrim gradually approached Avalon Island. In the dark night, the lights are brightly lit and the bustling Avalon is simply a pearl on the sea. I really don't know why this most chaotic island in the world is so prosperous. It can only be said that every place has its own characteristics, right? The closer we get to the port of Avalon Island, the more ships there are on the sea area. After a while, Orgrim's eyes lit up and he looked not far away. Like them, a large ship was heading to Avalon. On that ship is the flag of the Big Mom Pirates. But soon, Orgrim discovered that this was not the hymn queen mother of Charlotte Lingling, the dead old woman. It seems that Charlotte Lingling did not come here in person. Thinking about it, a small auction, even if there are some good things, may not be able to attract big guys like them to come in person. It's almost enough to send some cotters here. Whose ship is that? Orgrim asked the Sphinx next to him. After all, the Sphinx was an indigenous of the New World who had followed Shiji for several years. After casually looking at it for a few times, he said with some surprise, it's Big Mom, that perfect man from the pirate group, Katakuri. Katakuri? Orgrim was stunned for a moment, and then said with a smile, I didn't expect that the person who came was a big shot. Isn't he the leader of the Big Mom Pirates? Why are you here in person to participate in some auction? You are still the disciple and successor of Boss Shiji, aren't you here too? What's weird? Our Sky Pirates and the Golden Lion Fleet are much more powerful than the Big Mom Pirates, the Sphinx said proudly. Ha 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 ha, you are right. Orgrim laughed. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 176. Orgrim took Sphinx and Hank to the port, while the rest of the boys were responsible for watching the ship. After all, there are 10 billion Baileys on his ship, even with Shiji's name and his enemy of mankind flag. But this is the most chaotic Avalon Island in the world. Who knows if there will be an iron-headed boy who has eaten the heart of a bear and the gall of a leopard? What if someone goes up to steal money? So Orgrim left his men on the ship to keep an eye on his Bailey. Orgrim is now a big shot in the New World. On the one hand, it's because he represents Shiji's face. On the other hand, many people know that he is a ruthless character. Not only did he defeat the two captains of the Whitebeard pirates, but he can also fight against big guys like Whitebeard. No matter how you look at it, it's not easy to mess with. What's more, this boss is young and has a bounty of up to 900 million belly. No one with any brains is willing to become an enemy of Orgrim. Is that person the lion disciple? Hosgarot Orgrim, the world government calls him the enemy of mankind. There is really no one with this title. Is he the most evil? There's a bounty of 900 million belly, so keep your eyes open, but don't provoke him. The three of Orgrim were walking on the port, and naturally they heard the people here commenting on him. However, Orgrim didn't pay attention to anything, and was actually a little complacent. Sphinx had a dark face and was very unhappy. Said I, the Sphinx, am also a big pirate with a bounty of 260 million belly. Why don't these guys recognize me? Hank said very sincerely, when I was with Mr. Hammer, we were all supporting characters. Don't look at me like this. I also offered a bounty of 60 million baileys. Otherwise, no one would know me. You are 200 million behind me, the Sphinx said dissatisfiedly. Gee ha 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 ha, in this world the strong are respected. You little girl is not as strong as me. When you are with me, naturally no one will care about you. Orgrim laughed. As soon as he finished speaking, the Sphinx hadn't spoken yet. A black shadow fell in front of the three of them. It was a corpse, which looked lifeless at this time. With its neck they were all twisted off, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Orgrim frowned slightly when he saw this. Before he could speak, a muscular man came over. After seeing Orgrim, his expression was startled, and he said with some fear, I'm sorry, sir, I'll clean him up right now. After saying that, he quickly lowered his head, dragged the corpse and ran back, for fear that Orgrim would give him a hammer. Orgrim did not speak. Instead, he looked around and found that the people at the port seemed to be surprised by this. Even looking further away, you can still see someone killing someone, and there is a group of people cheering around. There were even several bloody corpses hanging on the signboard of a certain tavern. When people came in and out, they were soaked in blood and didn't care. They just cursed inwardly for bad luck. With just this casual glance, Orgrim has already felt the charm of Avalon, the most chaotic island. The biggest rule here is that there are no rules. You can do whatever you want, as long as you don't die. Gee ha 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 ha, Orgrim couldn't help but laugh. Why are you laughing? The Sphinx asked a little strangely. Gee ha 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 ha, it's nothing, I just like it here, I like it so much, Orgrim laughed. Just as Orgrim was laughing and chatting with the Sphinx, another group of people came not far away. The guy at the head was simply outrageous in height. Orgrim, the height of more than 3 meters, only reached his chest in front of him. The guy looked very strong, wearing a scarf around his neck, short burgundy hair, and very sharp eyes. Yes, the person who came was the same person. The perfect man, Katakuri, just landed at the port. Orgrim frowned, looking at this guy walking towards him, thinking that I don't have much interaction with him, right? Katakuri left soon. When he arrived in front of Orgrim, he said softly, first meeting, Mr. Kajgro Orgrim, I am Charlotte Katakuri, one of the generals of the Big Mom Pirates. Katakuri is quite polite, and Orgrim doesn't have the habit of hitting people with smiling faces. So he nodded, responded to Katakuri and said, first meeting, perfect man. Katakuri shook his head and said softly, it's funny. In front of Orgrim, Katakuri didn't want to make excuses. The perfect man was just a joke. Katakuri just came over to say hello to Orgrim, and the two chatted casually. After a few words, it was like a face-to-face meeting. Then Katakuri left here quickly after saying goodbye. Orgrim looked at the guy's back and wondered what the guy was doing. Baffling, Orgrim shook his head, and then walked into Avalon Island with Sphinx and others. Of course he didn't know that he almost had the chance to become Katakuri's stepfather. That's why Katakuri came here to say hello to Orgrim. By the way, he also got to know this lion disciple. It would be nice if he could get off to a good start. After all, the Big Mom pirates are now no match for the big boss Shiji. After staying on the island for 2 days, the tenants of the tavern changed one after another. Some people even moved in within a few hours before their bodies were thrown out. On this island of chaos, people seem to be dying every moment, and there is no difference between day and night, as if the entire island will never fall silent. But it also supports this lawless atmosphere. Every moment, people enter Avalon from other sea areas, so that everyone on this island will not die. But soon, Orgrim discovered a phenomenon, that is, the longer people lived on this island, the less likely they were to die. On the contrary, a large number of newbies who have just landed on the island and have not adapted to the conditions here will soon die. And what they bring will become nutrients for Avalon Island. This is the same as raising voodoos, Orgrim murmured with a smile. Just as he was sitting by the window watching the fighting on the street outside the window, the door was knocked, and Orgrim answered casually. Hank walked in with a sledgehammer on his shoulder and said, "Master Hammer, the auction is about to begin, shall we go? Have you found any trace of the church's dealings with the world government?" Orgrim asked without looking back. Once found, they would trade in the church's chapel 3 days later. Hank nodded and said. This is the news given by Planck. Although the major forces will not station any forces here, intelligence personnel are all over Avalon Island. Opposite the hotel where Orgrim is located, the famous Happy Street. On the surface, it is a romantic business. In fact, it is the largest information circulation place in the dark world, and their boss is also one of the emperors of the dark world. She is known as the Queen of Happy Street Stussy. However, Orgrim also knows very well that Stussy, the Queen of Happy Street, is actually standing behind the world government. She is a senior agent of CP-0. Of course, this is not the headquarters of Happy Street. Orgrim, I don't know if Stussy is here, either. Yeah? Orgrim murmured softly, then stood up, closed the window, and said, then let's attend the auction first. When he walked out of the room and reached the lobby on the first floor of the hotel, Orgrim saw the somewhat impatient figure of the Sphinx. And not far from her feet, there were 2 corpses lying with their heads covered. The kind that exploded with bullets. The people in the hotel seemed to be used to it, and no guests felt helpless. Soon, 2 cleaners went up and dragged the body away. You guys came so slowly. Did you jump to the Happy Street opposite the window? After the Sphinx saw Orgrim's figure, his original impatient expression disappeared, and he came over with a smile and asked. The little guy knows a lot. Orgrim reached out and flicked her brain. Humph, aren't all you men like this? The Sphinx rubbed his head and said unhappily. Let's go to the auction. Orgrim didn't bother to discuss these issues with her. In fact, looking at the Happy Street outside the window, Orgrim really wanted to go in and sit down, but considering that he had something serious to do, he stopped this idea in the end. There is no real owner on Avalon Island. Every year, many seemingly powerful forces are destroyed here, and then new ones come to power, and then they are killed. The relatively stable major forces are the forces of the dark world. They won't interfere with Avalon's rule or anything, just don't affect their business. This auction was jointly held by several big guys in the dark world, including Happy Street, Black Gold Lending, Umit Shipping Company and so on. However, the most powerful member of the dark world on Avalon Island is not one of the 3 of them. It is an organization that specializes in buying and selling human organs. After all, people are dying here all the time, and to them, dead people are valuable. In fact, world governments and many countries also spend huge sums of money every year to purchase various organs and even complete corpses from them. Many scientific researches need these to promote, especially medicine. The auction venue was very magnificent, but it still couldn't get rid of the customs of Avalon Island. At the gate, there were more than 10 corpses hanging, some of which looked like they had died not long ago. After the three Orgrim walked to the door, the beautiful woman who greeted him did not ask him what invitation he wanted at all. She said very respectfully, "Welcome Lord Kasgaros Orgrim, our dark auction, a VIP private room has been prepared for you, please follow me." Orgrim did not speak, but nodded calmly and followed the beauty inside. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 177. Although it is said to be a VIP private room, it is actually not completely enclosed. It is just on the second floor of the auction venue. There are screens separating these seats so that the people below cannot see the people above them. But the VIPs above can see each other clearly. Orgrim saw Katakuri and others sitting not far across from him. After a few casual glances, I saw several CP-0 members wearing masks and pale mride clothes. Orgrim didn't know the other guys, and they probably weren't members of the pirate force. It seems that no one from the Whitebeard pirates or Kaido came, otherwise with their status, they would have to arrange a VIP seat. There are fruit plates and drinks on the table at hand, as well as an auction brochure, which introduces the items to be auctioned at this auction. Orgrim picked up an apple and took a bite, smiled and looked at the beautiful receptionist who was pouring wine for the three of them, and asked, "The biggest rule on Avalon Island is that there are no rules, right?" The beautiful woman smiled at the reception and responded very politely, "That's it, Lord Orgrim." In other words, there are no rules in this auction? As long as I'm strong enough, I can steal your stuff without paying? Orgrim asked with an evil smile. The beauty was stunned for a moment, but it seemed that no one had asked this question before. She said skillfully, "Theoretically, it is like this. However, if you, Lord Orgrim, do such a thing, you will be blacklisted by members of the Dark World. You will not be invited to participate in such auctions in the future, and even many businesses will you prohibit. Such as arms, smuggling contraband, etc., Orgrim asked with a raised eyebrow. Yes, the beautiful receptionist said with a smile. Orgrim nodded. This can indeed curb this kind of behavior that is not conducive to the progress of the auction to a certain extent. Orgrim thought about it and felt that there is no need to grab things here. He will definitely have to deal with people from the Dark World in the future. It would be embarrassing if he was really blocked by these guys. Besides, Orgrim is also wealthy this time. He has 10 billion belly with him, so he is not afraid of competition. But soon, after pouring the wine for Orgrim, the beautiful receptionist smiled and said, "Of course, these are just the rules in the auction venue. Once you leave the auction, all the people in our dark world will people don't mind their own business." Gee, ha 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 ha, are you implying to me that as long as I leave the auction place and want to rob it, I can do it at any time? Orgrim asked with a big smile. Of course, because this is for Avalon Island, which has rules. Everything on this island respects the strong, the beautiful receptionist said with a smile. No, you are wrong. It should be said that everything in this world is respected by the strong. Orgrim said with a grin. Lord Orgrim, you really see things thoroughly, the beautiful receptionist said flatteringly. Orgrim nodded, and then ignored her. The beautiful receptionist was also very sensible and quietly retreated to the screen, ready to serve them at any time. Orgrim casually placed a piece of paper on the table. He picked up one of the auction illustrated books, turned to look at Sphinx who was looking at the other one, and asked, "How is it? Did you find what you want to buy?" "I just read the first page. It's nothing. I wonder if they will sell anything powerful here, like unlimited artillery," Sphinx said without raising her head. "Ha ha ha ha, unlimited artillery. You're thinking shit. Orgrim teased. Then he looked at the album in his hand. The auctions this time were also diverse. The first page was about the beautiful slaves of the mermaid tribe, but Orgrim was not interested in this and turned it over directly. Past. Then there were some strange things, such as unknown treasure maps, and the coordinates of gold mines on a certain island. After turning a few more pages, Orgrim also saw some properties listed as belongings. Famous sword. I thought of my hawk again, maybe he would be very interested in these. After a long time, Orgrim finally saw what he wanted. Devil fruit material transmission technology. The starting price is 300 million belly, which is not very expensive. It seems that I am safe this time. Orgrim smacked his lips and said. He still didn't believe it. This thing with 300 million belly could be sold to 10 billion? Maybe with his name, no one would dare to compete once the price is raised. After smiling, Orgrim turned back 2 more pages, and then his eyes lit up with a flash of light. He raised his head and looked towards Katakuri. He seemed to know what this guy was aiming at. Here it comes. I saw that it was a devil fruit on the illustration, and it was clearly marked. It was not an unknown devil fruit. It was a superhuman type reheat fruit. This devil fruit is also quite powerful. And later acquired by the Big Mom pirates, Katakuri's brother Owen became a user with the ability of the heat fruit. Now it seems that Owen's fruit ability is the result of Charlotte Katakuri. Did you buy it back here? I have to say that Katakuri really takes good care of his younger brothers and sisters. No wonder he can have such a high level among the abnormal blood ties of the Big Mom pirates. Prestige. Should I say that he is worthy of being a perfect man? Thinking of this, an evil smile appeared on the corner of Orgrim's mouth. If I hadn't come, this devil fruit would have belonged to your Big Mom pirates, but now that I am sitting here, this fruit belongs to me. The potential of the hot fruit is very good. No matter what kind of master Orgrim uses it to train, or what he does, it is very valuable. Now that he is going to buy the devil fruit material transmission technology, he just needs a powerful devil fruit to match the sledgehammer. And this reheat fruit is very good. Theoretically speaking, ordinary weapons cannot withstand it. Once the ability of the heat fruit is activated, it may collapse and be melted into iron juice by the high temperature. But Orgrim's Doom Hammer is a product produced by Goldfinger, and it has its own special effect of being indestructible. No matter how awesome the heat fruit is, it is impossible to destroy Orgrim's Doom Hammer. Think about it, once it is equipped with this ability, it will not only kill you with a headshot, but also process you to maturity. Food, if you are in a bad mood, I will burn you to ashes and scatter your ashes. Gee ha 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 ha, not bad, not bad. Whether it is used to strengthen the sledgehammer or used by anyone, it is the best choice. Orgrim laughed. What did you say? The Sphinx looked up at Orgrim and asked. I have my eye on a devil fruit. Orgrim stretched out his hand and pointed it to Sphinx. Sphinx glanced at it and said very excitedly, this fruit seems to be very powerful. Is it suitable for me? Orgrim was stunned for a moment, and then said, if you think you can give up those fancy guns and ammunition, I think that's pretty good. What's the meaning? The Sphinx frowned and asked. What I mean is that once the ability of this fruit is activated, your weapon will most likely not be able to withstand the high temperature and will melt into iron juice, Orgrim said with a smile. Ah, the Sphinx looked surprised, then quickly shook his head and said, forget it, without machine guns and heavy artillery, the Sphinx, would have no soul. You are such a clever little kid. Orgrim complained. Why did you buy it? The Sphinx asked curiously again. I tentatively feed it to my hammer, like that Gatling gun of yours. Orgrim said with a smile. Yeah? Can your hammer withstand the heat? Asked the Sphinx again. Well, my hammer is made of special material and is indestructible. You can think of it as a historical text or something, but my hammer is probably stronger than a historical text. Orgrim explained with a smile. That's it, the Sphinx nodded, and then asked curiously, then tell me, can I eat devil fruit? If I eat it, will it be destroyed? Orgrim was stunned for a moment after hearing this. Everyone was shocked. Holy shit, you little guy seems to have discovered some incredible secret. Devil fruit can change the nature of matter. For example, if a person eats it, he will turn into something like a rubber man. The historical text is indestructible now, but if you really eat a devil fruit, wouldn't it become the material of the devil fruit? If you create a superhuman glass fruit or something like that, wouldn't it theoretically be able to be destroyed? Fortunately, I am not a member of the world government, otherwise I might really have to try and see if I can destroy 2 historical texts or something, Orgrim thought in his heart. He even thought evilly that it would be fun if he destroyed one of the 4 historical texts of road signs. Sphinx, this is the end of your idea. Don't talk nonsense to others in the future. Orgrim said with a smile. But he didn't take it seriously. It had little to do with him anyway. Bang! Sphinx spat with great disdain and turned to look at the auction illustrated book. Orgrim ignored him and continued reading, since Katakuri's target was confirmed. He also wanted to see what the goals of the world government were. Those CP-0 people couldn't be here to go shopping, right? Just as Orgrim looked at the illustrated book in his hand, the auction officially started, but the first person to be auctioned was the little sister of the mermaid tribe. Orgrim had no interest in her at all, and he was not prepared to spend money on charity to buy her freedom or anything. He still lowered his head and studied the auction. Atlas. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 178. I flipped through the entire album. Although there were many interesting things, Orgrim was still not sure what the world government wanted to buy. I looked up and saw that the little girl from the mermaid tribe had just been finalized. 300 million belly. Orgrim took a look at the final bid, and then he was a little surprised to find that the person who bought it was CP-0. So, are you here to run errands for the Tianlong people? I thought I was here to work for the world government. A flash of understanding flashed in Orgrim's eyes. CP-0, although they are the strongest intelligence agency under the world government, their first purpose is always to serve the celestial dragons. It seems that Orgrim just thought too much. A mere slave of the mermaid tribe was not worth fighting for, and no one wanted to compete with CP-0. After a few casual moves, he was bought by 300 million baileys. Orgrim didn't mind his own business and continued to wait for the auction. Not long after, some pirates on the first floor began to bid for the treasure map. Finally, no one continued to bid for 100 million belly. Then a young man from the Kingdom of Flowers, who was not known to be from the Hibao Navy, bought clues to a gold mine on a certain island. There are several swordsmen vying for famous swords and so on. After waiting for a long time, Orgrim finally waited for the devil fruit material transmission technology to appear. I believe you all know that devil fruits can not only be eaten by people, the existing technology has made breakthroughs, but can also be eaten by some objects to achieve some very magical effects. Many people seem to be very interested in this. Our dark auction, yes, this time we will auction related technology, which is called devil fruit material transmission technology. According to our actual measurements, this technology is very complete and has no shortcomings. Next, let us enter the auction process. Win. The starting price is 300 million belly, please bid. The auctioneer stood on the stage and said to everyone with a smile. As soon as he finished speaking, CP-0 raised his hand and bid 350 million belly. Orgrim was stunned for a moment. He thought that someone was following him. He competed, but he really never thought about the world government. After all, the world government is so large that it is impossible not to have this kind of technology, so why did they buy this? Recycle? To avoid technology proliferation, Orgrim touched his chin and murmured. As soon as the CP-0 sign came down, Katakuri took action. 400 million belly. Katakuri said softly. 500 million Baileys, CP-0 bid again. The two big guys started fighting, and all the other forces that originally wanted to fight for each other stopped. People on the lower level did not dare to get involved in this kind of fight. After all, even if you are rich and arrogant, you can snatch this thing away from the two powerful forces in this venue. Then you may not be able to take it out of Avalon Island. Buying this thing is equivalent to buying a life reminder. Soon, CP-0 and Katakuri quickly raised the Devil Fruit materialization transmission technology to a height of 800 million Baileys. Katakuri's expression hesitated a little. This technology and the Big Mom pirates were indeed interested in it, but not to the extent that it was necessary. It's just that Katakuri himself wanted to study it. Although 800 million Baileys was affordable, it seemed a bit unworthy, and he still needed to buy the hot fruit at the back. At this moment when Katakuri hesitated, Orgrim had an evil smile on his lips, raised his hand and said 1 billion belly. His voice was very soft, but it spread quickly. Attracted the whole audience. Everyone was surprised. Is there really a big boss who dares to grab food from both of them? The people below couldn't see who was bidding, but the people on the VIP level could see each other and turn around to take a look. Damn it, it's Hosgarot Orgrim, disciple of the lion, public enemy of mankind, and a big boss. Since people came here with Shiji's name, they naturally didn't take Katakuri and CP-0 seriously. Katakuri also turned to look at Orgrim, then nodded slightly and stopped bidding. The world government raised the price to 800 million belly. Katakuri didn't want to buy it at all, but he just couldn't save his face. Now that the big boss Orgrim has entered the market to raise the price, he certainly doesn't mind passing the blame. Anyway, as long as Orgrim buys this thing, it is also a demonstration of the strength of their pirate camp. He is not ashamed, but the world government is ashamed. CP-0 looked at Orgrim over there, but these filial sons were wearing masks, and their expressions couldn't be seen clearly. 1.2 billion Baileys. CP-0 bid again. 1.5 billion Orgrim still said calmly. His expression was very calm. It seemed that 1.5 billion belly in Orgrim's hands was as worthless as 15 gold belly sons. A few people from Zero glanced at each other. This time they were indeed here to run errands for the Tianlong people. In fact, CP-0 will participate in many high-end auctions, not for something, but to buy some gifts for their masters, the dragons, to send back. For example, this mermaid slave is quite popular among the celestial dragons. The 300 million belly is well spent, and he might get a reward of 560 million when he returns. There are even other benefits. The Devil Fruit material transmission technology is a secondary task assigned to them by the world government, that is, recycle it if you can. As the ruler of the world government naturally does not want these technologies that can cause greater chaos and threats. Lose out. But if it's only 1.5 billion, although they could afford to shout, it was not worth it. In the end, CP-0 stopped following the price. After 3 confirmations, the auctioneer dropped his hammer and said happily, "Congratulations to Mr. Kashgro Orgrim for buying the price for 1.5 billion Babel's Devil Fruit material transmission technology." As soon as he spoke, the younger brother on the lower floor realized who was bidding the price with the CP-0 people. It turns out that he is another big boss who cannot be offended. A smile appeared on Orgrim's lips, and he turned to the beautiful waitress standing in the corner and said, "I want this technology in my hands now. Hank, give me the money and let her get it." "Yes, Mr. Hammer." Hank nodded. Then he took out 2 suitcases from under his feet. If they were banknotes, 1.5 billion belly would take more than 10 boxes to hold them. But Orgrim and the others also brought them this time. A lot of gold. This was cut by Shiji from those gold bricks that were not very valuable. They were far more valuable than bank notes. These 2 boxes must contain 1.5 billion belly. The beautiful waiter was shocked. Damn it, bringing gold to buy things is really a luxury. She quickly carried 2 boxes of gold down, and after auctioning off 3 more items that Orgrim was not interested in, she came back again. All the information related to the materialization and transmission of the devil fruit was handed over to Orgrim. Orgrim nodded with satisfaction and handed this thing to Hank, who quickly put it into a portable safe. After buying this thing, Orgrim has already paid back his money. The hot fruit and so on are just overjoyed, but there is no way that a mere devil fruit can be called 7 or 8 billion belly. To the point, right? Thinking about it, the result of the operation was only 5 billion baileys. So Orgrim casually took out a cigar from his arms and bit it on his mouth. Before he could take out the lighter, the beautiful waiter approached with a discerning eye, struck a match and gave it to Orgrim. Grim lit his cigar. Slowly exhaling a puff of smoke, Orgrim said, "If you two are interested in anything, you can bid." Hank shook his head. He was not interested in any of this. If there were any ancient animal devil fruits, he would really like to buy one. But this thing is also very rare. It depends on luck. Obviously, it is not available this time. Sphinx flipped the illustrated book back and forth in his hand, and finally cursed angrily, "There is nothing good at all. Does this kind of auction also give us golden lions invitations? This one in my hand is worth an invitation, Sphinx." Orgrim smiled and said, "Hey, after all, you should have a natural type devil fruit or something to be qualified, right? Or maybe it's a laser gun or something like that," Sphinx said unhappily. "Gee, ha 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 ha, your standards are really unique," Orgrim joked with a smile. Just as he was chatting with the Sphinx, soon, the superhuman type reheat fruit appeared. A smile appeared on the corner of Orgrim's lips and he was ready to buy it. "Got it? Everyone, please see, this devil fruit has been identified by our dark auction as a superhuman type Riri fruit. As we all know, a good devil fruit can bring a qualitative leap in strength to people, and the Riri fruit is undoubtedly a powerful and rare superhuman ability. The masters of the previous generation and the previous generation are all powerful figures on the sea. Do you want to get this kind of power? Then come and bid. The starting price is 300 million belly," the auctioneer shouted excitedly. As soon as he said this, the small forces below quickly placed bids. A powerful devil fruit was enough for them to spend a lot of money. Even if they offended the big guys above, they would still be in trouble. No hesitation. Just buy it and eat it before leaving the venue. Even if the big guys want to kill them, it will be nothing more than a dead end and no one can get it. Although the risk is high, the benefits are even greater. Dare to come. No one who participates in the auction on the island of Walloon is greedy for life. As long as there are enough benefits, what is the point of risking one's life? 400 million belly. 500 million. 700 million. The guys below were bidding like crazy, which shocked Orgrim. Damn it, is this devil fruit the big one? In the blink of an eye, the price of this devil fruit has soared to 1 billion belly. Oh. Grim glanced at Katakuri. That guy hadn't made a move yet, so after thinking about it, Orgrim didn't ask for a price either. Keep calm and take your time. Don't forget, this is Avalon where there are no rules. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 179. At present, the big guys on the upper level are not making any moves, it is the younger guys below who are bidding. It seems that the big guys are waiting to see the situation. Not long after, a woman from Happy Street took action. 1.3 billion Baileys. This is the fate of the first big boss on the VIP level. However, the juniors below did not show any respect and continued to increase prices crazily. Soon, the people from CP-0 also took action. 1.6 billion Baileys. After all, Happy Street is just one of the big guys in the dark world. Its image at sea is that of intelligence and flower street business, and its deterrence is not very great. But CP-0 represents the world government, and their deterrence is obviously very high. Here, as soon as CP-0 bid, the guys below obviously paused, and some began to consider the risks involved and their own capital. Sing an oboe? Orgrim sneered. He knew very well that Happy Street was one of the forces of the world government. Bidding with CP-0 here clearly showed traces of acting. Moreover, Happy Street was the host of this auction. One of the parties. They are probably covering up Happy Street, making it seem like they are really in trouble with the world government. 1.7 billion. Katakuri said softly. When Orgrim saw this, a smile appeared on his lips again. Sure enough, Katakuri couldn't help it. But he still didn't take action, waiting for the final outcome. Again, after several bids, CP-0 unexpectedly paid a high price of 2 billion belly for a hot fruit. Katakuri's face was very gloomy. He raised his hand slightly, but quickly put it down again. Orgrim finally understood this time. This guy was no longer prepared to bid. He was going to grab things from CP-0 after the auction ended. Orgrim was able to come to this conclusion because he knew that, if he hadn't participated in it, the rare fruit would definitely return to Katakuri's brother Owen in the future. Now that CP-0 bought it with strong financial resources, he would definitely be robbed when he went out. Thinking of this, Orgrim, I'm not going to argue with CP-0, the big boss. Just buy it. If you can bring it out of Avalon Island, I will lose. If those guys below buy the hot fruit, Orgrim will definitely increase the price. After all, he was also worried that these little guys would eat the devil fruit on the spot. Then no one would get it. But for CP-0, there is no need to worry, they will most likely bring the devil fruit back to the world. The government. So there is a high probability that they will not eat the devil fruit on the spot, so they will have the opportunity to steal it, right? Katakuri must have been paying attention to this. But everyone is a pirate. If you can steal it, I will naturally you can also grab it. Who can grab it in the end depends on his own ability. As for whether he will offend the big mom pirates or something, Orgrim doesn't care at all. As long as Shisky doesn't lie down for a day, he is also the one with thighs. For a devil fruit, if you have the guts, Charlotte Lingling, go to war with the Golden Lion. As for grabbing CP-0, will it offend the world government or something? Are you kidding? If you don't rob, the world government will not be offended by Orgrim. I am the public enemy of mankind. Aren't you attracted to this hot fruit? Why didn't you raise the price with those guys? Are you afraid of the world government? Hip hop ha ha ha. Sphinx asked with a very curious smile. Orgrim waved his hand and said casually, it doesn't matter, I really like the hot fruit, but I didn't say that I have to buy it to get it. Let them pay and let us rob them, and that's it? Ha 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 ha, are you going to fight later? Very good, SPHYNX said without fear at all. The beautiful waitress standing behind was also stunned for a moment. Is she really worthy of being a pirate? There is nothing wrong with this idea. But she seems to be used to it. This kind of things were so normal. As long as their dark auction happened, it had nothing to do with them. After the hot fruit was taken, Orgrim quickly lost interest in the auction. He yawned a little sleepily. Casually took the fruit on the table and ate it, never asking for a price again. Not long after, everything in the album was sold out. Orgrim wiped his hands with a wet towel, and looked ready to leave, but just when he was about to stand up, the auctioneer suddenly said, "Everyone, next is the surprise we have prepared for you." Orgrim raised his eyebrows and sat back again. It seemed that besides the things in the album, they had other tricks. Soon, the last auction item used as a surprise was delivered. Orgrim glanced at it from a distance, feeling a little strange. It's not a powerful devil fruit, nor is it something strange and unfamiliar. But a piece of paper. This is a formula we found from an ancient ruin. After deciphering it, we call it a spiritual potion. According to the final summary of the formula, this potion can stimulate people's spirit in a short period of time, making people enter a state of excitement, but these are untested because we cannot create this potion, the auctioneer spoke. Orgrim's expression changed slightly, and he looked at Katakuri CP-0. Wait for these big guys. Sure enough, they all had some conative feelings. Orgrim also had some thoughts in his mind. This thing, for the big forces capable of mass production, is tantamount to opening up a new business. Psychotropic agents. To put it bluntly, it's just a stimulant. Going a step further, if something like the stimulant falls into the hands of villains like them, what will it evolve into as the dosage is adjusted? Is there any need to think about it? Of course it's contraband. You can refer to the Golden Triangle and cannabis in previous lives. However, the auctioneer said that it was untried and they could not make it, which is a bit evocative. Are the giants of the dark forces unable to do anything about this thing? No wonder it was put up for auction. If it could really be made, it would probably be circulating on the black market now. Orgrim would like to call it the rich woman's happy medicine. Obviously, if this thing is used for the nobles to play with, it will definitely be quite suitable, and it will definitely become popular all over the world. If the productivity can reach the standard, it is simply a way to get rich overnight. Of course Orgrim is very interested in this, and so are the other big guys. We lack a core material, which is the kind of material that can stimulate the brain. We have tried many things, from tobacco, from some fruits used to make stimulants, but in the end we found nothing, so we decided to auction this recipe. If you have any materials that you can try, please don't miss this recipe, because everyone should understand what it represents, the auctioneer said with an evil smile. Orgrim touched his chin. Material that works on the brain. Does IQ count? If IQ can really adapt to this formula, Orgrim will have a golden industry in his hands. As a pirate, he can sell some happy pills to rich women or something like that without any psychological pressure, and his target is high-end nobles. Ordinary people, don't even think about it, there is no way to buy it, let alone, you can't afford it. Once it becomes popular in the aristocratic circle, the wealth used to attack the world government will be a huge weapon. Orgrim also had a conscience to some extent, so he decided that if it was really useful, it would not be too addictive, let alone have the effect of damaging the body. Just focus on happiness and that's it. And thinking about it again, I am a person with a bottom line, but if this thing falls into the hands of others and they really figure out what to do, it will be a disaster. If you buy it yourself, wouldn't you be doing a good deed? Hosgarot Orgrim, do good every day, a good man. No one knows happiness better than me. There is no doubt that Orgrim has ideas, and many big guys have ideas. They will also have some corresponding materials in their hands. They can buy them and give them a try. If they don't work, if the price is not high, they won't calculate a loss. But if it yields results, it will definitely make a profit. As for venture capital, everyone has a big business, so this is no different. So soon, the big guys took action, and Orgrim didn't hesitate. Under the puzzled eyes of the Sphinx, he started fighting with those big guys. Soon, the formula with a starting price of 500 million Baileys was quickly raised to 2 billion Baileys. And the stopping speed cannot be seen. Katakuri's price increase of 500 million and 500 million, CP-0 also shouted wildly. The other big guys also shouted along. On the contrary, those organizations in the dark world and forces, have not participated because they have tried and failed. 5 billion Baileys for the first time, the auctioneer shouted excitedly. This price was paid by CP-0, and Katakuri finally made no move. But Orgrim continued, raising his hand and shouting 5.5 billion, looking like he was rich and wealthy. Looks like he's not short of money. CP-0 the other side hesitated again. There is no doubt that the bastard Orgrim has done very little, and he only bought a devil fruit material transmission technology before. But he made it clear that he had no shortage of money. CP-0 bought a lot of things, and now his pockets are a little stretched. And recently in the gold market, Shiji has been selling a lot of gold crazily. There is news that the Golden Lion has made a fortune and seems to have found the legendary land of gold, Sandora. Got a whole city's worth of gold. CP-0 of course I have heard about it, but I have not confirmed whether it is true or not. But judging from Orgrim's current posture, it is obvious that he is rich and arrogant. In the end, Orgrim bought the formula of the rich woman's happy medicine at a high price of 5.5 billion belly. Many people are very sorry, but they are not particularly jealous or anything, because this thing is unstable and no one knows whether buying it will produce results. Everyone is betting, but the cost of Orgrim's bet is relatively high. Are you crazy? Spend 5.5 billion to buy this? The Sphinx looked at Orgrim very puzzled and asked. Gee ha 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 ha, it's just a gamble. If you lose, it's only 5.5 billion. If you win, it's blood money. What do children know? Orgrim laughed. A sledgehammer breaks into pirates. Author, Zippo. Chapter 180. As soon as the auction ended, Orgrim said to Hank, you go directly to the port now and ask the brothers to block the port. No entry or exit. Of course Hank understood what Orgrim meant. It was obvious that he was about to cause trouble. So he nodded very quickly and said yes, Lord Hammer. Orgrim and the others brought 2,000 boys here this time, originally intending to protect tens of billions of Baileys. Now that most of the money has been spent, Orgrim doesn't care about that anymore. Just block the port first and don't let Katakuri and CP-0's people escape. Sphinx, go and get the formula and the money. Orgrim turned to the Sphinx and said. How about you? The Sphinx looked at Orgrim and asked. Orgrim smiled evilly and looked at CP-0, Katakuri and the others who were getting up to leave. Then he said, of course I'm going to grab the Riri fruit. Then I'll help you later. Sphinx said excitedly. Then she quickly left with Hank. Orgrim stood up, took out a stack of Baileys from his arms, and threw it to the beautiful waiter. He said with a smile, I originally wanted to have an in-depth communication with this beautiful lady like you, but now it seems that I have some business to do, which is really a pity. The beautiful waiter also smiled sweetly and said, if Lord Orgrim doesn't mind, I will be happy to wait for you in the room tonight. Gee ha 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 ha, that's really great. Orgrim said with a laugh. Then he turned around and left the place without looking at her again. CP-0 people left here very quickly. But before they had gone too far, the people from Happy Street sent them a message. Hosgarot Orgrim blockaded the port, CP a member of Zero said in surprise. Why is he so bold? This is Avalon. They have a lot of manpower, and with Orgrim's name and Shiji's intimidation, no one dares to offend them. Now the port has been cleared, the person from Happy Street said quickly. Before the words could even be finished, a black shadow flashed past from the other side and hit the Happy Street man in the head on the brightly lit street. This is, rice cake, Katakuri, CP-0 people quickly put on a combat preparedness posture. The young lady from the mermaid tribe who was protected by them was confused. What happened? The next second, Katakuri's tall figure walked out of the dark alley. His arm softened quickly, and then a trident slipped out of his arm and was held in his hand. Hand over the hot fruit and I will let you live, Katakuri said coldly. Katakuri, do you know what you're doing? Want to start a war with our world government? CP, the leader of Zero, asked in a deep voice. Humph, this is the new world, Avalon. If your world government wants to start a war, then come to the new world, Katakuri said nonchalantly. Asshole, CP-0 people cursed in a deep voice. Indeed, nowadays, the new world has almost fallen into the hands of pirates. Although the King's Shichibukai plan has been implemented, it is now an empty shell. It can be said that, except for the Navy's 3 bases in the New World, the world government has no control over the New World at all. But can those 3 bases pose any threat to the Big Mom pirates? Katakuri didn't want to waste any time at all, when he saw that the people at CP-0 showed no signs of handing over the hot fruit. He stepped hard, and the tall figure rushed out. The trident in his hand stabbed the leader. Don't underestimate CP-0, the leader shouted loudly. The weapon in his hand was domineering, and the white clothes of bringing a dutiful son were thrown away by him, revealing his strong figure and true face. Night Owl, a flash of light flashed in Katakuri's eyes. No one would be able to recognize CP-0's identity if he was wearing a special mask. But Night Owl is also a famous figure and the most capable person in CP-0. After he tore off after taking off his coat, Katakuri recognized him at a glance. He punched Katakuri's trident with a powerful punch, blocking Katakuri's attack. I'll stop him, and you can quickly evacuate Avalon, Night Owl said in a deep voice. Although the port was blocked by that bastard Orgrim, they still have helpers from Happy Street. It is impossible not to have secret passages and so on. The other 2 were just about to leave. A powerful shockwave erupted from the alley on the other side. Then, a strong figure hit another CP-0 member on the head with a hammer. There was a crack, like a watermelon exploding, and the guy didn't even react. I didn't even have time to react, my head was blasted directly by the hammer. Gee ha 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 ha, you've already come, why are you leaving in such a hurry? Orgrim laughed and said. He shook off the flesh and blood residue on the warhammer very casually, and worked in perfect harmony with Katakuri to block the CP-0 people here. Katakuri, his eyes suddenly changed, he removed the trident that was fighting against Night Owl, and asked in a deep voice, what is the purpose of your excellency Orgrim's trip? Orgrim grinned and said with an evil smile, I said I took action for this beautiful mermaid lady, do you believe it? Of course Katakuri didn't believe it, but he nodded without saying anything and said, I see, then I am very happy to help Orgrim Dano. Let's work together to eradicate CP-0 and the hot fruit here. Be mine, Miss Mermaid belongs to you. I would rather give you another billion Baileys as a gift, how about that? Orgrim was stunned for a moment, then laughed and said, gee ha 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 ha, you are indeed the first general under Big Mom. Katakuri, you are really awesome. I won't talk nonsense to you, Renee, the fruit is mine, how about I give you another billion Baileys? So there's nothing to talk about? Katakuri asked with a gloomy look in his eyes. Orgrim had a cruel smile on his lips and said, it seems we can't be good friends anymore. Yes, Yao was also thinking that if these 2 bastards got into a fight, it would be a good thing for CP-0, who could take advantage of the chaos and run away. But before he could stop thinking about it, he saw Orgrim and Katakuri taking action at the same time. What made him very upset was that the 2 guys had a tacit understanding and set their attack targets on CP-0. 80, Orgrim shouted, and the warhammer in his hand hit a CP-0 member directly. Katakuri also hit the Night Owl with a trident. Iron, the member of CP-0 shouted low, and with a domineering attitude, he was ready to bear Orgrim's hammer. A smile appeared on the corner of Orgrim's mouth, and he exploded in his hand, and the impact was directly released. Go out. The next second, the heavy hammer hit the Iron Master directly. Boom. A muffled sound. It looked as if the Iron Master blocked Orgrim's warhammer, but the next second, he spit out a mouthful of blood, which was also mixed with fragments of internal organs. Orgrim didn't look at him at all. He took 2 steps past his figure and swung his hammer towards the Night Owl. Before the warhammer fell, the Iron Master's body went limp and he lay directly on the ground, bleeding from his orifices and making no sound. Of course, Night Owl was also aware of Orgrim's ferocity. Without saying a word, he withdrew the power in his hands, stepped on his feet, and disappeared directly from the spot. Orgrim did not withdraw his strength, and the warhammer still roared out. Without Night Owl, wasn't Katakuri right in front? Katakuri's expression changed, and the trident in his hand was domineering, and he hit Orgrim's warhammer directly. The night roars, Orgrim roared angrily. Without saying a word, he directly activated the power of night, and his combat power soared instantly. Katakuri was shocked, and a huge force came from the trident in his hand. Before he could react, the trident was directly knocked out by Orgrim. His figure could not withstand the force and let go. The 5-meter-tall man crashed directly into a house on the side of the street. Orgrim knocked Katakuri away with the hammer and did not pursue him. He stepped on his feet and disappeared. The next second, he chased directly to the roof, behind the Night Owl who had just settled down and was about to run away. Gee ha 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 ha, don't you want a girl from the mermaid tribe? Orgrim laughed and taunted, and the warhammer roared out again. As a gift, give it to Lord Orgrim, Yes Yao said without looking back. Compared with the mermaid tribe slave, the hot fruit he carries is the truly valuable thing, okay. There are 3 of them here this time, and the 2 younger brothers have already. He was beaten to death by 2 hammers from Orgrim. Why don't you run away quickly? The roar of the Dragon King, Orgrim roared angrily, and a ferocious dragon condensed on the war hammer in his hand. The next second, the dragon came out of the hammer and chased the Night Owl. Along the way, it destroyed all the houses under its feet. The powerful impact sent half of the street flying. I don't know how many people were killed, but Orgrim didn't care. Just when Orgrim's shockwave was about to hit Night Owl, that guy, a pair of jet black wings suddenly sprouted from behind, and then the figure quickly climbed into the sky. Animal flying ability, Orgrim was a little surprised. Before he could think about it, he saw several glutinous rice dumplings breaking through the night sky like bullets and attacking the figure of the Night Owl. He forced the Night Owl to fly away directly. He was forced back again. The one who took action was naturally Katakuri, and one of his arms had turned into a Gatling gun at this time. Damn, the Sphinx must have something in common with you, Orgrim murmured secretly. At the same time, he stepped on his feet, and the moon step and the impact force exploded together, and his whole body rushed towards the Night Owl in the air like a cannonball.